The sun had barely risen, yet the plains shimmered in unbearable heat. Jack Thompson, a lone rancher, wiped the sweat from his brow as he trudged to the water trough. His heart skipped when he noticed a massive shadow moving unnaturally across the parched land. A figure emerged, a towering young woman, her dark hair tangled and dust-covered, eyes wide with fear and desperation. She stumbled, collapsing near the water. Something primal in him screamed to help, though danger whispered in the wind. Jack's instincts overcame caution. He hurried with a bucket, kneeling carefully beside her. "Here, drink," he said softly. She stared at him, hesitant, before cupping the water in enormous hands. Her lips trembled as they met the liquid, and her eyes glimmered with silent gratitude. Jack had never seen such raw vulnerability mixed with strength. He felt a strange pull, a responsibility beyond reason. Saving her seemed simple, but in the plains, nothing came without consequence. Ahioka," she whispered in a voice deep yet melodic. Scars traced her arms and legs, remnants of battles she hadn't explained. Jack realized this girl, this giant, carried stories of war, survival, and resilience far beyond his understanding. Offering her food, he noticed her shaking head toward the horizon. Danger lurked in her warning. Yet Jack could not turn away, compassion anchored him. He led her toward the barn, silently praying that his choice wouldn't invite disaster. That night, lightning split the sky. Thunder rattled the barn, but Ahioka remained calm, her towering frame silhouetted against the storm. They shared an uneasy silence, broken only by distant coyotes' cries. Jack marveled at the courage and grace radiating from her despite her fear. In a way, her strength mirrored his own. Survival against odds, resilience when life demanded it. By dawn, their bond, fragile but real, had begun forming, stitching two disparate lives together in trust. The morning brought a terrifying realization. On the ridge, hundreds of mounted warriors appeared, their painted faces fierce, weapons glinting under the sun. Jack's pulse thundered. He instinctively stood in front of Ahioka, ready to defend her. She stepped forward, unafraid, and raised her hands. The warriors froze. Her presence commanded respect they could not ignore. Jack felt awe and fear collide. The girl he had helped had power, influence, and a warning he hadn't understood until now. Ahioka's voice rang out, authoritative and melodic in her tongue. Slowly, the warriors lowered their weapons. Jack realized they were her people, protective, loyal, and potentially dangerous. The act of giving her water had reverberated across the plains. Gratitude or vengeance, he couldn't tell. Still, her silent nod reassured him. They were allies now, for better or worse. The weight of the situation pressed on him, but he sensed a glimmer of hope. In the following days, Jack and Ahioka developed a rhythm. She learned to trust him, he learned to respect her instincts. Her curiosity about the ranch led to small smiles and shared stories, creating a fragile normalcy. Yet, shadows of tension lingered, whispers of rival factions hunting them traveled on the wind. Every creaking door, every rustle of grass, hinted at approaching peril. Jack knew danger wasn't hypothetical, it was inevitable, and they had to prepare. A violent storm arrived unexpectedly. Torrential rain and gale-force winds swept across the plains. Jack struggled to secure the cattle while Ahioka moved like a living shield, her massive frame protecting livestock and himself. Together, they fought the storm. Every action reinforced their bond, trust became instinct. Amid the chaos, Jack realized, she wasn't just a helper, she was essential, the force that made survival possible. Her presence transformed fear into courage. The next day revealed a hidden danger. Messages etched into trees and stones warned Jack to abandon Ahioka, or suffer consequences from rival warriors. Panic clawed at him. His simple act of kindness had set unseen forces in motion. Retreating wasn't an option, not with her life at stake. He now faced a moral and literal battlefield. Protecting Ahioka meant risking everything, his ranch, his freedom, even his life. Yet he could not ignore the silent plea in her eyes. Ahioka sensed his turmoil. She placed her hand on his arm, a giant hand, yet gentle, and conveyed assurance. Her gaze mirrored his determination. No one would be left behind. They were bound by a pact of survival and loyalty. Jack felt courage swelling within him, a strength he had never known. Whatever awaited them, they would face it together. The plains, once desolate and lonely, now held a spark of unity and purpose. Rumors spread like wildfire. Local ranchers whispered of the giant girl on Thompson's land, of mysterious warriors gathering on the horizon. Curiosity mixed with envy and suspicion. Jack found himself in a new world, one where heroism, danger, and legend intertwined. Every visitor, every noise, now carried weight. Every sunrise brought questions. Would Ahioka remain safe? Would loyalty be rewarded, or punished? The stakes were higher than ever. Weeks of preparation followed. Jack and Ahioka reinforced the ranch, mapped escape routes, and devised signals. Her intelligence and resourcefulness astounded him. Despite her massive size, her movements were precise, careful, almost magical. Together, they built a sanctuary on the plains. Trust, once fragile, now glowed like fire. Jack realized this wasn't just survival, it was the birth of a partnership that could defy the harshest odds. Winter brought its own test. Snow buried the plains, and winds howled like spirits seeking revenge. Jack shivered, but Ahioka labored tirelessly, clearing paths, tending animals, securing shelter. Jack watched her, admiration swelling into awe. Every challenge she met, she transformed fear into action. She was more than a protector, she was a force of nature, a partner who made the impossible achievable. Jack felt gratitude, respect, and something deeper stirring within his chest. But whispers of attack returned, darker than before. A rival faction plotted at dawn, their intent clear: seize Ahioka, punish Jack. He faced a brutal choice: hide and survive, or confront the threat to protect her. He no longer hesitated. Courage surged, born from the bond they had nurtured. Together, they would fight, not out of malice, but to preserve life, trust, and the fragile hope that had brought them together. Dawn arrived with eerie stillness. Warriors approached, eyes hard, weapons ready. Jack and Ahioka stood side by side, hearts pounding. This was the moment that would decide everything. Fear had transformed into resolve, partnership into synergy. Every plan, every strategy, every shared glance counted. They had prepared, endured, and hoped. And now, as the first arrows whistled through the frozen air, their story truly began. The first volley of arrows tore through the morning air, thudding into fences and earth. Jack ducked instinctively, shouting for Ahioka to move. But she stood her ground, her immense size making her nearly untouchable. With a deafening roar, she deflected arrows with her arms, sending them clattering harmlessly to the snow-covered ground. Jack's heart raced. He realized that she was more than human, she was a guardian, and together, they were about to turn the tide against an army that outnumbered them 300 to 1. The warriors charged, drums echoing across the frozen plains. Jack grabbed his rifle, aiming carefully, but knew brute force alone wouldn't win this fight. Ahioka moved with uncanny speed, weaving through the attackers and using her size to shield him. Every swing, every dodge, sent men sprawling. Jack's respect and awe grew with each passing second. The girl he had helped the day before was now the key to survival, and possibly victory. Fear had transformed into adrenaline, courage into precision. Amid the chaos, a hidden figure emerged on the ridge, a rival chieftain from a neighboring tribe, intent on capturing Ahioka for her legendary size and strength. Jack recognized the danger immediately. This wasn't just a random raid, it was a coordinated attack. He shouted a warning to Ahioka, who responded with a guttural call that resonated across the plains. The sound was so powerful, so commanding, that several warriors froze, unsure of how to respond. Jack realized her presence alone could change hearts and minds. Jack took a daring risk. Using the chaos, he led the cattle into a narrow canyon, bottlenecking the attackers. Ahioka followed, her shadow immense against the canyon walls. Arrows bounced off the rock and snow, while Jack strategically fired at weak points. The warriors' momentum faltered, their ranks breaking under the clever tactics of a lone rancher and a giant protector. Sweat mixed with snow on Jack's brow, but he grinned, hope was rising amidst the storm. The rival chieftain, enraged, tried to confront Ahioka directly. He rode forward, brandishing a spear. Ahioka's eyes flared with anger and determination. With a single, precise motion, she disarmed him, sending the spear spinning across the canyon floor. Jack gasped at her strength, but there was no malice, only control. She knelt slightly, whispering words he couldn't understand. The chieftain dropped his weapon, stunned, and his warriors faltered, unsure how to act. Jack seized the moment, rallying the ranch hands who had hidden in barns and behind fences. They joined the fight, cutting off retreat paths, driving the attackers into confusion. The combined efforts of humans and giant girl created a nearly unstoppable force. Every move, every glance, every sound carried weight. Jack realized this was no longer about survival, it was about standing for trust, compassion, and honor. Amid the fray, a sudden blizzard swept through the canyon, reducing visibility. Snow stung Jack's face, and his hands grew numb. But Ahioka thrived in the chaos, her immense frame breaking through the storm like a living shield. She guided Jack and his allies with unerring precision, each step calculated, each maneuver decisive. The warriors, already demoralized, began retreating, slipping on ice and faltering in confusion. Victory seemed within reach. Then came the unexpected twist. A group of rogue warriors attempted to flank them from the ridge, hoping to trap Jack and Ahioka. Jack froze, realizing they could be cut off. But Ahioka, sensing the danger, leapt with astonishing speed and precision, intercepting the attackers. Her massive hand swept them aside like twigs, and her roar echoed across the canyon. The remaining warriors hesitated, fear replacing fury. Jack watched, awestruck, as the impossible unfolded before his eyes. By noon, the battlefield had shifted entirely. The 300 warriors had dwindled to scattered groups, their morale shattered. Ahioka stood victorious, her chest heaving, eyes scanning the horizon. Jack approached cautiously, realizing the immense weight of what they had survived. They had defied impossible odds together. A quiet settled over the plains, broken only by distant birds returning to the snowy trees. The ranch was safe. They had endured the storm of steel and snow. Jack and Ahioka sat together in the barn later, bruised but alive. He offered her food, which she accepted with a small, almost shy smile. Words weren't needed, the bond between them was deeper than language. He realized she had become family, protector, and friend all at once. Trust had transformed into loyalty, compassion into something unbreakable. For the first time, Jack felt true peace, a calm that had eluded him for years in the harsh, unforgiving plains. The local tribes, who had witnessed the courage and loyalty displayed, began approaching with respect rather than hostility. Ahioka's legend grew, but Jack remained humble. Together, they negotiated alliances, ensuring safety for his ranch and her people. The same plains that once threatened isolation now echoed with unity. Jack understood that a simple act of giving water had cascaded into an entire community's transformation. Compassion had become a bridge across fear. As winter melted into spring, life returned to the ranch. Cattle grazed peacefully, the snow thawed, and new crops sprouted. Jack and Ahioka worked side by side, laughter mingling with the wind. Their bond had strengthened, tested by fire, snow, and arrows. Villagers now came freely, bringing stories, gifts, and gratitude. Jack realized that heroism wasn't just about fighting, it was about kindness, courage, and standing for what was right, no matter the cost. One evening, Jack watched Ahioka kneel by the river, her reflection mirrored in the water. He joined her silently. For a moment, they shared peace, knowing the worst was behind them. She glanced at him, a subtle nod, and Jack smiled, feeling an unspoken promise. They had endured betrayal, danger, and unimaginable odds, yet emerged stronger. Their connection was more than survival, it was life transformed, trust cemented, and hope fulfilled. The story ended not with fireworks or fanfare, but with quiet triumph. Jack's ranch thrived, Ahioka's people respected and integrated, and the bond between human and giant girl became legend. The plains, once hostile, now held laughter, hope, and life. Jack realized that the simplest acts, a bucket of water, a moment of kindness, could change the course of countless lives. And as the sun set, warm light bathed the land, reflecting a promise of new beginnings, joy, and enduring friendship.